So good afternoon, everybody. And the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm on the graveyard shift, is I'm going to ask you all to raise your hand. Thank you. You don't know what I've asked yet, but raise your hand if you went to school. Yes, raise your hand if you went to school. Good. Those of you who've not got your hands up are either lying or you're not listening to me. And that's because I wanted to start with school, because the school system is the system that we all are familiar with, but also the school system is the system that teaches us to only think cognitively, engage what is called this cognitive brain. But I'm here to tell you today that actually we don't only have one brain, this incredible machine that sits over here, made up of billions and billions of neurons. And for those of you who did biology at school, remember those neurons are those little hose pipes that transform all the information. We've actually got 3 brains, and neuroscientists have discovered this since 2013, that not only have we got this incredible machine up here, but we've got another brain over here, made up of billions and billions of neurons that transport information. And what I want to do first is I want to actually come into the audience and ask you to raise your hand. And I know this sounds weird to lots of you, but raise your hand if you, when you walk into a room, have this magic ability to kind of sense the energy of the room. Seriously, I need your help. Just raise your hand if you can kind of sense energy like here. It's like you feel it. I personally don't really get that, but good, you do. So tell me over here, when you feel something and you can like really feel it the whole way through, do you sort of sense that like you feel compassion and like you care about them, and do you almost sense a feeling like coming out? Anybody that senses that, raise their hand. Like you can really, can you feel that? You can almost sense people's needs. It's like you've got this amazing emotional intelligence, like wow, lucky you. The rest of us have to work for that. Right? True. But now raise your hand, anybody, if that's not true for you. For you, if there's a problem to solve or a solution to find, you're in a meeting, whatever, your kind of knowing sits here in your gut. I know you're out there. Tell me. Just know. Tell me if it sits in your gut. I've got no body types in the room. That's insane. Thank you. Seriously, raise your hand. Yours too. You've got a problem to solve. Tell me something. When you are in the room and you kind of feeling this sense, do you get a sense of anger ever? Can you feel really angry at stuff? Do you feel really incensed, you? Just raise your hand, everybody, if you feel kind of incensed by stuff, quickly. And when you feel incensed by stuff, keep your hands up so I know who I'm talking to here. Tell me, when you feel incensed, can you react quite quickly? You, yes, sister, I'm talking to you, baby girl. And tell me, when you feel incensed and you get angry and stuff, can you possibly really get angry around injustice? Is that the thing that triggers you?
Yes,
and betray, is that the thing that triggers you? It gets you your moedmeter into the red, like fast. Is that true? Yes, own it, girl. It's beautiful. So tell me something else. When you get angry, is it because the underdog, particularly, is being discriminated against? Can that get you really ignited, really quickly? Good. And can things come out of your mouth that you kind of wish weren't coming out of your mouth at that moment? Yes, is that true for you? And have you kind of been getting into trouble a little bit all your life because of it? Because you're strong and because you're opinionator. I know, I spotted you across the room. I have an 8 dar. And you know what else, my friend? The 8 dar, exactly, is my favorite person. I have a little bias, I'm not going to lie. Because the 8, and please can I get some answers from you? The 8 is the kind of person in the world who really, really, really cares about the underdog, because you really, really, really care about protecting the underdog. Is that true for you? That's true for you, yes. And so the thing about the 8, thank you very much, my darling. Can you imagine, where's my 2, you beautiful man over here? Could you ever imagine that this person is fighting and getting angry, and when they fight and when they get angry and when some things come out of their mouth that they wish weren't, could you ever imagine that that was an act of love? Just put your hand up, anyone in the room. Could you ever imagine that when somebody's fighting and getting angry, it's actually an act of love? Just raise your hand if you think that's weird. Totally. Because the thing is, when somebody's behaving in a way that we don't really understand, what's actually happening is they're exercising what's called their code. And every single one of us, I've got a code, you've got a code, he's got a code, she's got a code. And the thing about our codes is that they're all different. Because the thing about our code is that our code is actually our personality type, and our code is actually what makes up our unconscious bias. Just raise your hand if you know that you've got a bias. Good. Because if you've got a brain, you've got a bias. Just raise your hand the last time you made it, if you know that you've made an assumption in the last 6 months. If you haven't got your hand up now, I know you're lying to me or you're not listening. Because our brains are wired to make assumptions. And that's what we do when we engage with people. We make assumptions about them based on our lens, based on our bias, based on our code. And our code is really just our personality type. And our personality type is really just our coping strategy or survival mechanism. And the thing about our personality type is it shows up usually when we're under stress. Just raise your hand if you felt a little stressed in the last 6 months. And I definitely think if you haven't got your hand up now, you're lying or you're not listening to me, because we've had an incredibly stressful 2 years. So the thing about our bias and the thing about our code is that that's actually what creates our burnout. So the 8, would you agree, my darling friend, that when you get angry, it takes a bucket load of energy out of you? An 8 will get burnout because they're fighting a battle all the time on behalf of their tribe. True? And you think your tribe's with you, and as you bash down the door of the CEO's office, where are the beep that was supposed to come with you? The reason why you get so angry is because for you the trigger is betrayal. Now the thing about our code, am I right, my darling? Just raise your hand if I'm right. Now the thing about our code, everybody, is that it actually is the thing that gets us burnt out. And that's why I think for today, in today's world, it's absolutely fundamental that we learn our code. Because what happens is when we're burnt out, we cannot build connections, because burnout makes us exhausted. And the statistics around burnout in the world today are absolutely terrifying. $2.5 trillion is what it's costing the global economy right now. So burnout is what keeps us out of connection, everybody. And connection is why we are here. It's not an optional extra or a nice to have. It's actually a neurological need, as some of the people alluded to on the panel. And so when we want productive teams, and we want people to know their superpower, and we want people to contribute to a high-performance team, if they're not connected to themselves, they can't be connected to others. And what keeps us out of connection is the fear of people knowing us. So that's why it's crucial that we learn our code. And here I've given you my code, and we all have our own code, but not only do we have our own code, you've got a code as a collective. Your organization has a code. South Africa has a code. Women as a collective consciousness have a code. And as I always say, once I have your code, I can figure out, and I can help you figure out what it is that you need. And I can help you figure out how to communicate what's important to you. And once you know what you need and you can communicate what's important to you, then you can build connections. And that's crucial. So I'd like to end by saying to you all, ladies and gentlemen, that human connection is an essential part of surviving this digital revolution. So I would really encourage you to come and get your code. That's your number. I've got a number, you've got a number, and I definitely want to know yours. I hope that you're curious about your code. Thank you, everybody.